Hi, and well, this video is about some tricks that you can use to when you develop in the Unity tool. Tricks to save you time and to work in a safer and more efficient way. I will not talk about software development technique or management techniques for efficiency. I will just point out some simple tricks and tips which I use in my daily practice. In fact, my inspiration came initially from my habits that I evolved in time using working in Java with JetBrains IntelliJ, and which is an amazingly productive development tool and environment. And I initially didn't get that in Unity, which too is a pretty amazing tool, and that not only because of the output, but how the editor exposes API and can be customized to your needs. And so I progressively discovered how to do it and how to fit my needs. So maybe some of you are in search of the same solutions and they can find some tips here. Here I will give you quick presentations and techniques, but you will find the scripts and all the references in the blog post linked to the video. Okay, so let's start. We'll start from saving scenes, recompiling code, so working on run, stop, and compile in the scene flow. So let's start from a simple consideration. Every time you change something in the scene and you're not running it, when you actually run the scene does not normally get saved. So as it may happen, and it unfortunately does indeed happen, that the IDE crashes when running, and it's of course when you run it is most likely that it crashes with respect to when you're simply using it. So you may lose a lot of work because everything that you've done you haven't saved. The IDE crashes. Now there's actually a trick to recover unsaved scene from the file system, which you may find by googling it, but that's not a standard procedure. So I think the wiser thing is very simply to save the scene, to have the scene to be auto-saved before running it. In order to do this, you just put in the special folder editor, which is a special folder, one of the several special folders in the Unity handling of the file system. Inside assets, a file, a little script, a little class called autosave, which you will find in the link at post, which will do this for you. I think that's very cool. And yeah, so you see in this case, whenever I change something while not running, of course, it will be saved before running. Okay. Now notice that I also changed, as you may do in preferences, the tint of the editor while the application is running. So I have clear in my mind that if I say change some value here and here, and then all this tuning here will be completely lost if I don't do a screenshot or copy it before stopping, you see, and it gets lost. So that's too is important to remember, and there are tricks to do this too. Another feature which I find bizarre, and I found a workaround, not by myself but by then some smart guy, is this. So if I run the application and I find something that is not behaving as I'd like to, and I go into my editor, which in this case is Visual Studio, and I don't know, let me use I change whatever, or even no, let me change yeah, something I want to show you afterwards, like this. I change this. Okay. Now, of course, here too I enable autosave. So as soon as I lose focus, the class gets saved, and see what happens. Well, in my case, nothing dramatic happens because the IDE stops and the class gets automatically recompiled, so I'm ready to go. But what actually normally happens in Unity, you will have seen this a lot of time, is that it does completely the wrong thing. So what it does is that it tries to compile the classes while running and live reloading classes in the virtual machine, which of course fails. I mean, there are ways to make it not fail in specific cases, but they're extremely non-practical. So what normally happens, what happens to everyone all the time, is that the reloading fails. So the IDE simply start shooting thousands of errors and sometimes crashing the IDE and make it impossible to stop it. So that's very silly. And in order to prevent that, there's again a little script that as soon as the compiler starts compiling, stops the play. So that classes may be reloaded. You don't waste time. Everything happens in the background, and so you when it's the class compile, you can play and be happy. Okay, so I think already these two things prevent some bizarre behavior and a lot of wasted work and time. Okay, so one little nice thing is this. Whenever you're working on the scene, and say working on the UI or on layers, screens, panels, and so on, parts of the scene, you may want to, in order to see them, see parts or not see parts, you may want to enable and disable or set the alpha or see parts and act on them, resize, and so on. Now, as your hierarchy tree gets more complex, you may have things which are nested, and because they're simply well organized. And then each time you enable something which you don't want the beginning to be on the opening of the scene to be enabled, you have to turn it on and off by hand, or you have to write code to maintain that. Which is, people say, oh yes, I write everything in code, so everything is under control. Well, that's actually false most of the time, because keeping things under control by increasing the number of codes that you have to maintain is actually a very bad idea. So another trick here is to simply have a visible and completely set by simply dragging in the IDE class that can maintain this. So you can enable and disable whatever you want while developing, and then here you drag what you want to at startup to be enabled, what you want to be disabled. Now, and a tip I think everybody who has some expertise will have found to be very important is in order to be sure about the order of being enable or disable in the scene. Don't rely on the awake methods. Don't rely on the awake methods, because the order of the awake methods is of course non-deterministic. So and of course relying on settings is again something which is non-visible and making things harder to maintain. So my advice here is to do something which you can see at a glance and maintain in time, like the trick that I'm showing you. Actually, this trick, as many tricks, comes from my friend Daniele Giardini's Demi-Giant, who's a great developer. Okay, so this it's something in between the IDE and the code. Now switching to code writing a bit and code maintenance, let's see now Visual Studio. Yeah, so well, one of the first things which I found natural, and again comes from the JetBrains IntelliJ experience, is to have that scripts autosave when they lose focus. That's very nice, very comfortable, and if used in conjunction with the fact that when Unity recompiles, it stops play, that's overall works for you and can save you a lot of problems and a lot of time at the end of the day. But so well, here of course I'm using Visual Studio as a perfect companion to Unity, but of course this only works on Windows. So I would follow up if I was developing on OS X. I would follow carefully what JetBrains is preparing for C#. Now, so I think something that you should think about if you want to work on Unity, which is such a complex environment, in particular if you want to work on video games, which are even more complex, is to have the right tools for the job. So in the long run, having some commercial tool, buying some commercial tools can save you an enormous amount of time, and for as much as you can convert time in money, also money. And one of these is ReSharper with the JetBrains plugin, which adds so much functionality in Visual Studio, making it almost comfortable. And well, I won't go into any detail what ReSharper does, but just with the adding the refactoring, autocomplete, and code optimization tools that it provides can save you a lot of time, even if you don't generally like myself, you don't like complex or large architectures. Even if, like me, you try to write very few and simple classes, but still, even in simply daily writing code, there are some little tricks that can save you a lot of time. Like so, well, just some very simple examples is if you select any kind of code, or Control Alt V, and it will replace your duplicated code with a local variable to which you can give a name, which will be of the right type and with the right name, and you just have to confirm the auto completion and go on. And so and the same if you have any kind of code which is duplicated, or you Control Alt M, and you can extract a method from there if it makes sense, which here it doesn't. Okay, yeah, it will extract the method and so on. So I mean, it's just if you add the ReSharper to your daily practice and tools, it will save you an enormous amount of time just in simply in code writing, in writing good code and maintaining it. Okay, so these are from some general things. Now from some let me check some more little tricks. So back to the E-Day. Now back to Unity. Okay. Well, when, for example, you check out in the inspector class, you see everything that is public or serializable, and I won't enter in that debate which is better, will be exposed and editable. Now, unless here you're using types which Unity doesn't know about, in that case, if you exposing values which in case you don't want to edit those, which would be more complex because those types, I mean, you will find a way to interact with them here. But in case you want just to read them, well, a simple trick is to put a public string debug on the object and set there all the information on the class that you want to read. and in fact this public string, you can put tags on the string so that it can be, for example, exposed as a text area, so it will be easier to read. You see, you can annotate your classes in C#, giving instruction to the editor so that the public variables will be shown with titles and in certain formatting options, which is really nice and practical and cool. And so that's one nice tip. Another nice thing, let's open another scene here. I want to show you. If I go into match, yes, save. If I go here and like I have here, if I go on my pitch, look at this tag here. This is a debug image that I use to check out whether the grid is fitting what I want to do in the field, which actually appears like this. Okay, but so it's very useful as a reference image to have it in the scene. But of course, I don't want this image to be distributed, but it will be because it is in the hierarchy. And so if you tag it editor only, it won't be distributed. Now, actually, Unity is incredibly smart when it produces a distribution of what you're doing. So it optimizes removing everything that's not actually used, everything but what you put in the resources folder. So the resources folder is another special folder where you can put stuff that will be always go in distribution, but that you can load. It won't be loaded in memory until you actually need to use it. So that's another thing. So be careful what you put there, because it will all go into distribution. But with that, you can put there stuff which is changing. Let's say in the progress of the story which you're presenting in the scene. Okay, so actually, I have one last big tip for big in the sense of the time that may save you in your development life, and I have several other sparse tips which I will put in the notes of the blog post, but this one is particularly tricky. Is when you wanna launch call some asynchronous method, like I don't know, a call to some web server or whatever, and so that you can handle the yield of that method as I'm doing here. Now, the problem is that by default, and also the example of documentation is the fact that you do a public method that returns an enumerator, and so that it can wait, go asynchronous, and wait to be done before doing something else. And the problem is that if you call such methods without not as argument to the start coroutine, you won't get any exception, so it will be fine, compiling, run, but nothing will happen. So you really won't understand why it's not running, and you think everything is fine, and just the event freezes there, and everything's fine, but nothing's working, and you can spend hours. And well, there's a simple solution to that: to make those methods as private as you can, and instead of exposing those directly, expose a method in which you just do the start coroutine call. Okay, so which is saves you from that. Now, careful, of course, there's always another side or another way of looking at it, because here you're hiding the fact that this is not a method call just like any other, because it behaves quite differently in the game loop. I think for the major time saving things, are these ones. Some other notes are some nice things if you're coming from other languages to C# and Unity. Really cool stuff I found is like, for example, that the enums in C# are always numbers, and so that you can do all sorts of tricks with that. So they're both semantic. You use to regiment use of, as in games you may have a lot of words, a lot of language, and lots of types of monsters or whatever, and you can use enums there, but and you can always play with that by treating them as numbers. There's a, I think in writing in C# and ReSharper, you have lots of collections in Unity, and that the autocomplete always propose you to use the for each. And purists in Unity say, "Oh, never use the for each because it's wasting time, memory." And no, I think you should use it for each, and because it's writing typed code, and it's very readable, and it's compact code. But just be aware of the problem if you're setting variables in the local scope. You may there's a bug there actually in the mono implementation that Unity uses, which is fixed in the compiler that Microsoft and C# are using now, but it's still not fixed in the one that's using Unity. But I will put you links to detailed explanation to this in the code. But I mean, C# in general is incredibly practical language, like has everything that we always dreamed of having in Java and we never had, like I don't know, methods on the primitive type, like string dot is null or empty can save you a lot of writing code. Just it's built in, and many things like this. Well, practically, I find it very useful to use Unity with 3 screens. So that's another investment you can do, because if you have the IDE in one screen, the console debug and in one other screen, and the code in the central screen, that's a really nice way of handling it. Finally, one thing. I was thinking about ReSharper, how it can save a lot of time. I think there are at least 2 or 3 plugins which you should have really for whatever project you're doing. One is tweening, because in games, even visual novels, everywhere you use tweening all the time, and this is .tween by my friend Demai Giant. Of course, get the pro version, not the free version, and that's a little plug for him there. And another I think I find very useful, and also very useful in the context of the new Unity UI, which is wonderful, and it's the Text Mesh Pro plugin. I think these two are really the most useful couple I found so far. Oh yeah, I'm missing a third one, which is Console Pro, which you're seeing here in action. It's a really nice console wrapper, which has functionality which of course Unity should have by default. And for example, the fact that you can, whenever you have a log, an error, anything, if you click on the code line, it immediately jumps to the right line, which by default you don't have. Bizarre as that may sound, you may have not seen me doing this because I'm showing only Visual Studio Unity at the time. Yeah, so it did jump, just to show you. It did jump to the right line of code. And that's it. In the post I will put more links to materials and a bit more hints, and if you I regularly tweet my Unity tips, so follow the Unity tips tag on Twitter if you want to see what the smarter guys are, and not including me of course, are doing to improve productivity in Unity. See you soon. Bye.